Have you ever wondered why a man who speaks of discipline, order, and suffering draws tears from strangers? Why his voice, fragile, breaking mid-sentence, echoes in the hearts of millions? It is not charisma, not charm, not polished perfection. It is truth, trembling in a man's throat, daring to be spoken. He does not seduce, he summons. And in doing so, he becomes more than man. He becomes myth. Jordan Peterson, not as celebrity, but as symbol. Not as guru, but as guide through the underworld of the soul. He is the embodiment of an old masculine ideal, long buried, long ridiculed, long needed. The ordered king who chooses burden over bliss. The stoic who weeps not for himself, but for the sons who are lost. The prophet of responsibility, standing at the gates of chaos, whispering, "Pick up your damn cross and walk." In a world drunk on dopamine and rebellion, he dares to say what no one else will. That meaning lives in suffering, and salvation begins in the mirror. But do you understand what that means? Have you ever looked in the mirror, really looked, and seen not a victim, but a coward? Not someone wronged, but someone waiting? Waiting for life to change? For someone to love you, for someone to fix what you are too afraid to face. A man like him disturbs you, because he reminds you, no one is coming. You must go into the darkness yourself. That is why some hate him. Why others obsess. Why women cry when they speak his name. Not because he is father, but because he dares to father the soul. He is not a fantasy. He is the grave of fantasy. And when he speaks not to the ego, but to the archetype buried beneath it. The king asleep in the basement of your psyche, bound in chains of comfort and fear. Peterson's voice is the hammer on those chains. The cold whisper that says, "You know what you must do. You've always known." He speaks of dragons, and he means it. He speaks of chaos, and it listens, because he faced his own hydra, the dying of his wife, the betrayal of his health, the collapse of his body under the weight of the world. He didn't preach from the mountain. He preached while falling off it. And still, he did not curse the gods. He told young men, "Get up, speak, be dangerous." Not violent, but formidable. Not cruel, but capable of cruelty and choosing not to use it. You. What part of you longs to be him? What part of you fears it? Because to walk the Peterson path is not to feel good. It is to be torn apart and reassembled by responsibility. It is to live as if your actions matter. Because they do. Because someone is watching. Because you are watching. The modern soul is addicted to safety. But the masculine soul, it starves for risk. And in Jordan Peterson, risk is reborn. Not as recklessness, but as the sacred dance between order and chaos. That is why women lean in. Not because he flatters them, but because he awakens the man beside them, the man they hoped existed but had stopped believing in. A man who does not seek approval, but purpose. A man who does not flee the dragon, but studies its patterns, and so begins the journey. Not of worshiping a man, but of understanding what he mirrors. The shadow of the masculine, and the terrifying beauty of a man who chooses to face it. What does it mean to be a king in a world with no thrones? To speak of order in an era addicted to deconstruction? What does it mean to carry the crown, not on your head, but on your spine? Jordan Peterson is no tyrant, but he is royalty of a forgotten kind. The archetype he embodies is ancient. The ordered king, the one who establishes boundaries, speaks truth into silence, and carries the burden of the world on his shoulders. Because no one else will. He does not chase power. He bears it, because if he doesn't, someone worse will. The true king does not dominate. He protects. He guards the line between chaos and cosmos. He brings meaning to madness, and he pays the price. Peterson understands this law of sacrifice, that every step toward order requires the death of comfort. That every word spoken in truth draws blood, sometimes your own. In his lectures he walks a line. Every sentence, trembling, deliberate, weighted. Not because he is unsure, but because he knows the Logos has teeth. He does not tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what you already know, deep in the gut, beneath your excuses, beneath your rage. You know it. You've always known it. And that is why it hurts. His words carry archetypal voltage. Not because they are new, but because they are eternal. He speaks not from opinion, but from myth. And so when he says, clean your room, it is not trivial. It is symbolic. It is a ritual of reclaiming dominion over your space, your body, your fractured soul. The ordered king builds a kingdom one brick at a time, but he begins at the door of his own bedroom. But order, real order, is not control. It is alignment with the sacred. And sacredness always demands a price. That price is facing the shadow. Every king has one. Every man, too. That dark double. That Volf pacing behind the mirror. That rage you suppress. That cruelty you deny. That cowardice you excuse as compassion. Peterson doesn't just teach this. He lives it. He has walked through hell. Not metaphor, but physiological collapse. Addiction, sickness, sorrow. The trauma of watching his wife battle death. While the world twisted his name into mockery, he did not descend for attention. He was dragged by the gods, by life, by his own unresolved pain. But he came back. And that too is part of the king's path. The descent and return. The masculine hero myth etched into time. Osiris, Odin, Christ, and now in a modern tongue, Peterson. You who are watching, what do you avoid? What monster have you locked away in your psyche? The addiction? The hatred? The grief you numbed with achievement or apathy? The king does not slay the monster. He integrates it, and in doing so becomes whole. Women do not crave a perfect man. They crave a complete one, and a man who faces his darkness without becoming it. That man exudes a gravity deeper than beauty, more lasting than charm. He becomes dangerous but directed, soft yet untouchable, firm yet warm. The shadow-dancing king is irresistible, not because he is tame, but because he has tamed himself. Peterson is polarizing not because he offends, but because he reflects. And people do not fear him. They fear what he forces them to see. In his presence you must ask, am I noble? Or merely nice? Am I honest? Or agreeable to avoid rejection? He speaks not to your identity, but to your essence, to the part of you that remembers myth, the part that aches to build, to protect, to become someone worthy of trust. Not applause. He is not a king to be followed, but a mirror to be faced. And if you dare to look deeply without flinching, you may find something ancient stirring inside you. Not just a man, but a throne. There is a silence that follows every sermon of truth. Not applause, not outrage, but a stillness that wraps itself around the soul, like a cold wind reminding you, you are not a child anymore. No one is coming to save you. And that's exactly where the transformation begins. Responsibility. To many, it sounds like a prison. To Peterson, it is the path to freedom. He does not preach happiness. He preaches meaning. Not comfort, but consequence. Not rights, but duty. And in doing so, he echoes the words of the Stoics, those ancient keepers of fire who believed. A man is measured not by how he feels, but by what he chooses despite those feelings. Seneca would nod in approval. Marcus Aurelius would recognize the posture. Epictetus, once a slave, would hear in Peterson's voice the unmistakable tone of a man who has earned his philosophy through pain, because real philosophy is not spoken. It is carried. It is bled for. It is lived. Responsibility is not a slogan. It is a crucifix. When Peterson says, take up the heaviest burden you can bear, he is not romanticizing suffering. He is reclaiming it. He is saying, stop waiting for life to be easy. It never will be. Stop chasing happiness like a drug. It always fades. You want to feel real, to feel strong, to feel needed. Then choose your sacrifice. Let it sear your skin. Let it carve you into something solid. You, yes, you. What do you carry? Is it resentment disguised as independence? Is it guilt you've repackaged as humility? Or is it the dream you've abandoned? Because chasing it would expose your fear of failure? Peterson doesn't want your blind loyalty. He wants you to pick up what you've been avoiding. He wants you to confront the small, broken gods you've made from comfort and distraction. Responsibility is not about being good. It's about being worthy, comma. And when a man becomes worthy, not perfect, but reliable, the world begins to shift around him. Women feel it. Children feel it. Even strangers feel it. A man who chooses the burden of becoming whole radiates a gravity that no beauty can counterfeit. He becomes a lighthouse, not because he has power, but because he bears it without collapsing. Peterson is this kind of man. Not flawless, but formed by fire. He has been mocked, ridiculed, dragged through the jaws of medical agony. And still he rises, not with revenge, but with renewed insistence. Responsibility is salvation. He is not asking you to be him. He is asking you to be you. But finally, fully, without excuse, have you been hiding behind wounds, waiting for validation, telling yourself that trauma makes you special, instead of letting it make you stronger? He speaks to the victim in you, not to shame it, but to liberate it, to remind you, you are not your story. You are the author now. And yes, responsibility will cost you. It will cost your illusions, your numbness, your shallow victories. But in its place, you gain depth, direction, dignity, and that is what women, not girls, but women are drawn to. Not bravado, but burden carried with grace. Not dominance, but disciplined presence. Peterson awakens this truth in you, not by command, but by contrast. He shows you what is possible when a man refuses to collapse beneath what he must carry, when he embraces his role not as punishment, but as privilege. To be responsible is not to be chained. It is to be chosen by life itself, to become something greater than your wounds. You do not rise by accident. You rise by carrying the thing you most wish to avoid, and in doing so, you become something that no one can give you, and no one can take away. You become a man. Some women do not desire softness. They desire solidity. Not cruelty, but containment. Not dominance, but direction. Not a man who melts at their feet, but one who stands in fire and does not flinch. And that is why a man like Peterson, rigid in voice, trembling in truth, draws something out of the feminine that no trend can counterfeit. A primal trust, not in his perfection, but in his refusal to abandon himself. You see, the feminine tests, always. She's chaos, not out of malice, but by nature. She flows, she changes, she dissolves what is false. And she seeks not control, but containment. She wants to feel the edges of something real, not rules, not cages, but a masculine presence rooted in depth. Comma. Jordan Peterson does not seduce. He summons. And in that summoning, he awakens the feminine soul's ancient longing for the masculine to become itself again, because the modern man has collapsed into passivity, into pleasure, into performance, too agreeable, too apologetic, too afraid to lead, to speak, to stand. And the modern woman, strong yet starving, finds herself circling, longing for something she cannot produce within herself. The spine of the masculine soul. Peterson becomes a mirror, not of romance, but of alignment, of what it looks like when a man takes himself seriously, not arrogantly, but with sacred weight. He does not need to seduce women. He needs only to face his monster. And she watches. And she feels, because the deepest part of the feminine, the anima, is not drawn to charm. It is drawn to transcendence, to a man who has passed through death and returned not broken, but burning. Women weep in his presence not because he saves them, but because he reminds them there are still men who can hold the world and not collapse. And this touches something older than feminism, older than culture, older than words. It touches myth, the myth of the man who descends into the underworld, into his pain, into his inadequacy, and returns not softer, but truer. That is why you, whoever you are, cannot stop watching, because he calls out the part of you that wants to rise, not to impress, but to be revered. And women, the true feminine, do not fear this man. They relax in his presence, because they no longer have to be both masculine and feminine. Because now someone has come home. Do you understand what that means? It means polarity is not toxic. It is sacred. It means a man who embodies order does not suppress the feminine. He allows her to expand, and she will only expand in the presence of something unshakable, something conscious, something willing to say no. This is what the world has forgotten, that the feminine does not crave chaos. She is chaos, and she searches for a man who will meet her storm, not with resistance, but with integrity. Peterson's presence is not about romance. It is about archetypal trust, and that is more magnetic than any curated masculinity the world tries to sell. It's not about having six-pack abs. It's about having an anchored soul. You who listens, who watches, how many women have loved your softness, yet lost respect for your spine? How many women have begged you to open up, only to recoil when you finally wept without direction? You were told to be emotionally available, but not emotionally chaotic. She doesn't want your tears. She wants your center. She wants to know that when the storm comes, you will not become the storm. Jordan Peterson, fragile yet forged, has become that center, not as a boyfriend, but as an archetype of return. He does not lead with aggression, but with alignment. He does not beg to be seen. He sees himself, and that is enough. And if you, whether man or woman, can learn to do the same, then you too become magnetic, not to be desired, but to be trusted, and in that trust, there is space for true intimacy, true polarity, true power. A man who has not met his shadow is a danger to the world, not because he is evil, but because he is fragmented. He's kind until he snaps, strong until he retreats, loving until he feels unseen, then he punishes. But the man who has faced his monster, he is no longer ruled by it. He walks with it, at his side, not behind his back. This is integration, the final chapter of every hero's journey. Not victory, but return. Jordan Peterson is not the hero because he is loud. He is the hero because he came back. Back from despair, back from addiction, back from exile, not geographical but psychological. He re-entered the world not as a wounded boy, but as a man reforged. And he did not return empty-handed. He brought with him a sacred flame, the memory of who we are. He reminds men they are not monsters, but they have one inside them. And if they do not learn to know it, to name it, to integrate it, they will either become it or be devoured by it. The Stoic king is not emotionless. He feels everything, but he chooses his response. He is the container, not the storm. And that is what Peterson has become. He doesn't need to scream to be powerful. His restraint is his sword. His truth is his armor. His pain is his testimony. And when he stands before a crowd, voice trembling, eyes wet, speaking of suffering with reverence, he is not asking for sympathy. He is modeling what it means to be whole. Do you understand what that means? To be whole is not to be perfect. It is to be reconciled, to no longer reject parts of yourself for the sake of survival. Wholeness is when the warrior and the poet shake hands, when the father and the son forgive each other inside you, when the killer in your mind no longer needs to be caged. Because he is seen, Peterson speaks of cleaning your room, but what he's really saying is, bring order to your soul. Clear the rubble of ungrieved pain. Dust off the throne you've been too afraid to sit upon. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost your illusions, your comfortable self-deception, the sweet narcotic of victimhood. But in its place, you will gain something far more rare. Peace without sedation, power without cruelty, love without submission. That is what the integrated man offers to the world. That is why he polarizes. Because he cannot be controlled. Women feel it. Children feel it. Even those who hate him feel it. He reminds us of what we could be if we stopped blaming, stopped waiting, stopped shrinking. And this is the secret. Peterson isn't the answer. He's the mirror. The monster you face won't look like his. It will wear your name. It will speak in your voice. It will guard your wounds like a jealous lover. But when you stop running and turn to face it, you become more than a man. You become a myth. Not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. The feminine will feel your return. The world will feel your weight. And you will finally recognize yourself, not as the boy you were, not as the mask you wore, but as the man who walked into hell and came back whole, no longer half of something, no longer begging to be filled, but full. So let this be the call, not to follow, but to remember, not to kneel, but to rise. And when you do, when you speak truth with tears in your eyes, when you bear the weight without collapsing, when you become the man who can be trusted, not just wanted, you will not need applause. You will not need permission. You will only need the silence, that sacred stillness that follows every act of alignment. And in that silence, a throne will appear, not outside you, within you. The journey ends not with the slaying of the monster. It ends with the crowning of the man who dared to face it.